Good afternoon. Welcome to our first Tuesday's Tiger Connect. I will be your presenter today. I am Kenya Horn, the Director of Federal Programs, and our topic for today is building effective relationships through communication. And we will talk about, you can use all of these types of communication or building these relationships at home, with your family, with the school, within your community. And so we will just give you tips about how to do that during this presentation today. So we first start off with the vision of the school district, and that is to create a world-class educational system that gives students the knowledge and skills to be successful in college and the workforce and flourish as parents and citizens. The mission is to provide leadership through the development of policy and accountability systems so that all students are prepared to compete in the global community. The district has 5 goals. One is to achieve academic success, to have an effective and committed staff, to create a positive school climate and culture, to engage family and community, and to remain fiscal, responsible, and to sustain resources. So before we start talking about building relationships, let's talk about what a relationship is. According to the dictionary, Merriam-Webster's, a relationship is the way that two or more people, how they talk to each other, how they behave toward each other, and just how they deal with each other. And so anytime you look at your relationship with someone, it deals more than just being in relation with them, but it's also how you behave with each other and how you do things together. And so in order to build those relationships, we want to make sure that we have trust with one another. And so one of the reasons that it's so important to have a relationship is because it meets some of the needs that we need as a person. It helps us get things done. When we need things, we have things before us that we have to do, sometimes we have to depend on those people that we have relationships with to assist us. And then also relationships that just help us to have a more enriching life. It makes life better when you're not alone. And so we want to make sure that we work at building healthy relationships so we can have a good and long-lasting life. One of the most important parts of a relationship of the foundation of a relationship is respect. And in a relationship, we must respect each other, and that goes 2 ways. And in that level of respect, we know that we are safe. We know that we can be honest. Respecting each other also involves providing support to each other, cooperating with each other when we're working together, and also holding each other accountable for the things that we do, the things that we say, the way that we behave in our relationships. So respect is a very important part of having a healthy relationship. Most of the talk that we would do today will focus on those 3 C's of relationships. One of them is communication. Another C is collaboration, and the other one is commitment. And so we'll talk more about those 3 C's as we move forward in the presentation. Communication. Communication is just the way that we send messages to each other and the way that we receive those messages. And so the 3 basic ways that we communicate is through speaking, through listening, and through our body language. One of the biggest problems in a relationship can be the lack of communication. So it's very important that we use the tools that we have to ensure that we communicate appropriately, in the right tones, and often, so we can make sure that we all understand the needs of one another and able to respond to those needs as we deem possible. So communication includes listening. And sometimes, when you think about communication, you just think about the speaking part of communicating, but it also includes active listening. And so you want to make sure that when you're communicating with someone, that you are paying close attention to what they're saying and what they're feeling. Reflective listening means that you are, when they're talking to you, you give some type of comment to let them know, or ask a question to let them know that you're listening or reflecting on what they're saying. If you're not sure what they're saying, make sure that you clarify that with repeating it or restating what they're saying. And when they're giving you information, or just talking to you about a certain thing, make sure that you encourage them if that's needed, and also empathize. At this time, our kids, our teachers, even parents need empathy. We all need a little grace and mercy as we go through this time that is so different than times before. And so listening is a very important part of that. We also need to understand that our body language also is a part of communication. You can show a lot about the way you hold your body, and it tells a lot about how you're feeling. It tells a lot about if you're listening. It tells a lot about if you're interested. And so you're sending messages, even if you're not speaking, about how you feel about what is being communicated, and if you are open to what is being communicated. Some of the barriers that we have about when we are barriers that come forth when we are communicating include unrealistic expectations. Sometimes we expect things from people that that we should not. So we should not have expectations of a situation going in, and sometimes that causes us to not communicate effectively. Sometimes we have a need to be tough or have an image based on where we're from, our past experiences. And sometimes we have to let those guards down because we don't need to be the same place everywhere we are. And so one of the things that I have been accustomed to teaching students is how to code switch. And sometimes you have to change who you are depending on your environment. And sometimes that affects the way you communicate. And another barrier to communication just could be the prejudice that we have, having a preconceived notion about people, about situations prior to going in about a particular group of people. So that can also keep us from having open lines of communication. Constructive criticism can also be a barrier. One of the things we have to do is learn how to give it. It's okay to give criticism when you're communicating with others, but you need to make sure that it is not in a hostile way, and that you're giving the feedback that is comfortable for the relationship that you have. I can tell one person something in a way that's constructive that I can't tell another person because of the type of relationship that we have. So you also have to be careful of what you say and how you say, depending on the relationships that you have. And always, in all situations, avoid attacking the other person. We want to make sure that when we do have something to say, that we communicate it in a way that is respectful and that we retain the trust that we have within our relationships. And when you are in relation with someone, it's always good to give compliments. Give those compliments to acknowledge that person's self-worth. Give them to make sure that you are showing them that you are proud of them and that you like the things that they're doing and the way they carry themselves. Those compliments go a long way in relationships. And this part of communicating is a part that doesn't have to have a response. So when you give a compliment, that's just a free part of communication that you're providing that you don't want anything back from. So that second C that is necessary in building relationships is collaboration. And one of the things that when we talk about schools, we want to make sure that we are collaborating between parents and teachers, schools and families, schools and community. And one of the ways that we make sure that we collaborate goes back to the same thing as communication, is listening. We need to make sure that as we collaborate, that we're listening to all points of view, that we look at all the differences and respect those differences. Make sure that we understand each other and respect our skills and our knowledge. Everyone that is a part of a relationship has different skills, have different knowledge sets, have different experiences. And then when we're working together, we want to make sure we work together to make decisions for the best interest of the good. If that's the good of the school, the good of the organization, the good of the home, you want to make sure that we are making those decisions together. And one of the most important parts of a relationship is not finding fault in those that make up the relationship. Refrain from that. Make sure that we find solutions to problems instead of finding fault for problems, and always celebrate successes. So in building relationships between the school and the community, one of the best ways to do that is to rearrange the letters in parent, add an R to that, and turn it to partner, because parents are our partners in education. And our students cannot learn if we don't make our parents our partners. And so when parents and teachers are partners, then that makes an educated child. Why does that make an educated child? Because one of the things is that both parents and teachers have a student-focused philosophy. They all share the same beliefs, and that is that our students can succeed. That is, they nurture and they value the quality of the relationship. And then the most important part of that relationship is that they want that relationship to be preventive, and it wants to be one that is full of solutions for the good of the child, the good of the school, and the good of the relationship between both parents, students, and teachers. So in order for us to do that, we have to work as a team. And so some of the problems that teachers have is that sometimes they feel that parents think it's the school job to do everything, and they don't have time to do it. And so one of the ways is to make sure that if we're going to work together in a partnership, that we have the same messages. And that is part of the communication, that we talk to our students about the importance of coming to school, the amount of time that you're in school, and doing what you need to do when you're there. Making sure that we are emphasizing and motivating our kids, not only at home, but in the learning space as well. And make sure that as teachers and as schools and as district personnel, that we support families and not try to fix them, because that's not our job to do. We are here to support and make sure that our scholars are the best that they can be at all times. And so that leads us into the 4 A's of developing parent and teacher relationships. And so the first A is approach. It's always important how we approach a situation. I know sometimes we have situations that go on in life, at our child's school, but the way that we approach the situation is going to always determine the outcomes. The second one is our attitudes. We want to make sure that we value the perception of those that we're talking to and have positive outlooks on what we're going to discuss or what we're going to talk about. And then the atmosphere. Make sure that we create a good climate, the schools create a good climate, and make sure that even when parents come into schools, that we become a part of that climate and that atmosphere in positive ways. And then the actions, which are those strategies where we share a responsibility in the student progress and success, because schools alone do not share the responsibility of academic success. We must work with our partners in the community. And the most important partner is the parent at the homes that makes sure that our students have what they need at home so they can be prepared and ready to learn each and every day. And so actions equal strategies. And so one of the things that we know about the approach is that parents are essential to making sure that we have that shared responsibility. You are a part of how we approach your child. We need to help, we need you to help us understand some things about your child and some of the things that they may need. And so you're very essential in that. And so the attitudes that we have should be shown through the equality and the perspective. We want to make sure that every child is treated right. And we want to make sure that we treat our schools the way we want to be treated when we communicate with them and when we have conversation with them. And we expect our staff to do the same, to give that same golden rule when they're communicating with the public and with parents. And just have an atmosphere where we have one shared goal. And that shared goal here is student achievement and student success, because we did say at Harrisburg Public Schools that we do want our students to be successful parts of the global community. So the first action is to be proactive as a parent. One of the ways you can be proactive is make sure that you take the time to have that positive contact with your teachers prior to a problem or concern arising, to form that relationship. And you can do that at open houses, at your parent orientation nights, and always establish a way that your child's teacher knows how to communicate and the most effective way to communicate with you. The second way is be informed. Make sure that you always visit the school website, the social media sites, so you can be informed of what's going on at the school. Attend those back to school and nights and parent-teacher conference. Support the expectations of homework or any other activities that teachers provide or schools provide for your students. Keep track of your students' grades and their progress through the online system. Make sure that you visit our Family Resource Center. There may be things that may be available to assist you there. And then also utilize the access that your students may have to online resources such as iReady. Be realistic. We have to be able to have real conversations and have real expectations. And that is making sure that we, first of all, convey the same message about what is real and what we expect of students. Making sure that we keep our interaction with kids to make sure that we're assisting them on improving their success. And then also link what you do to your child's goals. If your child has goals, if they're like right now we're getting ready for testing and they have some testing goals, make sure that as a parent you are constantly motivating them and giving them some little nudges along the way to help them be successful in meeting their goals, even their personal goals, not only their academic goals. And again, make sure that you're in regular contact with the teachers and getting information that you may need to assist at home, and as they should be be in communication with you, but you don't always have to wait on them. You could also reach out to them first. So we've established that we must have communication, we must collaborate, and lastly, that last C is that we must commit. Parents must commit first. Commitment is first. So what are we committing to? We're committing to being a partner. So find out how you can work with your teacher to your child's teachers to better help in the education of your child, and just be willing to do so. The best part of, or the easiest part is just being a willing participant with a positive attitude. And so the first commitment is just being a partner to our schools and to our teachers in educating the child. The second commitment is just find a way to be more comfortable with the school and with your child's teacher. And that begins with sometimes just chatting with them. That allows you to get to know them better. Join activities at the school so you can volunteer. And I'm also your contact for volunteering. So if you want to volunteer, you can always contact me here at the central office. And also making sure to talk with other people at the school. And so the more you talk to your other parents of the school, your neighbors, and those teachers, you form a relationship, you're more comfortable, and you become more committed. And the third commitment is always feel free to be the first to make the contact. Sometimes we know we tell our teachers to contact the parents when you first start the school year and contact them so many times throughout the year, but there's no problem with a parent making the first move in making that contact with the teacher, because it says a lot to that teacher, and the teacher will know that you are invested in your child's future and that you are an invested part of this partnership between the school and home. And so make sure that you utilize your teachers' email addresses or leave messages for them if you want to talk to them. And not only communicate early in the year, even though we're halfway done now, but communicate often. Make sure that you don't just talk to them at the beginning of the year. Have conversations with your child's teacher throughout the year. And lastly, follow through on what you said you would do. When one of the things that cause problems in relationship is the lack of follow through. So one of the things we want to make sure that both teachers and parents do is make a commitment to follow what they said they were going to do. So if you say you were going to help with homework, make sure that you're doing that and do that on a daily basis. And make sure to let your teachers know if you're unable to do so. And so if you agree upon doing something, then let's make sure that we take the time to do those things, or notify the teacher if we're not able to do them, so we can make another plan to assist kids if we need to. And so we're going to end with this foundation of healthy relationships. And that deals with making sure that we follow those 3 C's, but of communicating, collaborating, and making a commitment, but also making sure that in that we respect our personal freedoms, our boundaries, that we provide mutual support, that we always have open lines of communication so we can be honest and we can express our feelings with one another. And that also builds the safety and trust that we need to have in our partnerships with each other, and also ensure that we are respecting each other and making sure that we're having a balanced partnership, and that it is one that is realistic and builds character in our students and builds the greatness of the relationship between the school and the community and the parents. And so we want you to know here in Hattiesburg Public Schools that we do cherish the relationships that we have with our families and our communities. And we want to make sure that we continue to build on those relationships and make sure that we build healthy relationships, not only between the schools and the community, but within our homes and within the community. And so we hope that this session today helped you with some tips to do so. And we want you to know that we are Hattiesburg built, that we are strong leaders, resilient, persistent, and unified. And we thank you for joining us today, and come back again on the next first Tuesday for our parent session, and we will air again this evening at 6 o'clock. Thank you and have a good afternoon.